Hi, if this is your first time watching us, we're Kevin and Mandy Wood from the Marriage Partnership, and we've been married for 36 years and have been supporting and encouraging marriages for about 18 years. Today we're going to be talking about marriage and redundancy from a Christian perspective. And so hopefully, if you're a Christian, you will understand where we're coming from. If you're not, you might still find a lot of value from what we have to say. So we just hope that you'd carry on listening. And we're just going to talk through a few of the things which I think can help. Now, I'm speaking from personal experience, or we've been through the experience of me being made redundant 3 times. So hopefully what we've learned from those experiences will benefit you. So the number one thing of the points that I would say is, first thing you've got to do, as soon as you hear that you've been made redundant, it's for sure, is to reduce your outgoings. Number one priority, because money's got to have to stretch a little bit further, and you don't know how long you're going to be out of work for. I was surprised at how long it took me to get back into work on each occasion.
I would just say, so basically then you've got to be content with what you have, and it's important as a wife or a husband to support the spouse that's been made redundant by becoming aware of our finances as a couple, so that we can support each other.
Yeah, it mentions this in Hebrews 13, I think it's verses 5 onwards, 5 to 6. Trust God to meet your needs, because He will, and I can speak from personal experience about that. When we I was unemployed. I can't remember whether it was the first or second time. I think it was the first time.
You were out for a year, weren't you?
I was actually unemployed for a whole year. That's something I never thought would happen. I really thought that it would be easy to get work again. And I'm an engineering background, so that wasn't on my agenda at all. And I thought, it'd be easy to get more work, but it just didn't work out that way. And I can remember on one occasion, we were a little bit tight for money, and we were going around a discount food store, and I was thinking, along with Mandy, what are we going to eat tonight?
What can we afford?
Yeah, and precisely that moment, a friend of ours who didn't know our situation particularly well, I don't even know whether they knew I'd been made redundant at that point. They just came along and they saw us in the supermarket, and God said to the guy, God's just told me to give you this, and He stuffed a whole load of notes into my top pocket. And it was then that I knew that God really had our backs with this, and that He was going to look after us. I kind of felt it already because of the way He provided, but that was like another confirmation. And I can safely say that we navigated all 3 periods of redundancy, and we got through.
We did, yes. And that's what it carries on to say in this translation of Hebrews 13, that let us be bold and say that the Lord is my helper. I will not be afraid. What can anyone do to me? So I think if we just remember that in our troubles, to be content, be satisfied with what we have, and just trust in God to provide what we need.
Second point, don't blame each other or God for what's happened. It's probably completely out of your control. And so we just have to adapt to the situation in hand.
Yes, it's easy to blame God, isn't it? There's no point in blaming each other, because the person that's been made redundant, it's not their fault, especially at the moment when it can come at any time. We could make preparations for the possibility, especially if we've been on a furlough for so long, because so many companies are sort of thinking about making people redundant and not having them back after a furlough. So making tentative inquiries and just making preparations for the potential that you might be made redundant would be a good way of preventing any blame between each other as a couple.
Yeah.
But certainly don't blame God. Seek him. As we say, he knows. He knew what was going to happen. And you could say, well, if he knew, why didn't he prevent it? Well, we have to search for why this has happened and ask and seek his will for our lives.
Thirdly, whether it's the wife or the husband that's been unemployed may have a slightly different bearing on things. For men, a lot of a man's identity is tied up in their job and how they perceive themselves. So, a wife needs to perhaps be a little bit more sensitive to the fact that a husband, when he's lost his job, it affects him in a different way. I think the other thing about being redundant is that you're not. I don't know. I like the word redundancy. It kind of makes you sound like you're useless. You're of no use. You may not be of use to your current employer currently, but God's got a plan for you, and it might be that He wants you to be changed as a person through this experience. I know that when I was made redundant, and we went through a period of not having much money, it changed our outlook. And actually, I felt richer having less money in some ways than I did when we had more money, because we were trusting God for daily needs and getting really close to Him during that season.
Yes, it was a peculiarly exciting time. Strangely. Yeah, definitely. But you see, God has got a plan and a purpose for each and every one of us, and He's given us all the gifts and talents that we need and that He wants us to use. So you are going to be useful to somebody else, or to God particularly, in anything He puts in your way. So it's seeking Him, isn't it? And seeking Him with your husband or wife.
I think there is a danger that we can lose sense of proportion when we get made redundant. Particularly, panic might start to set in and think, oh no, we're going to become destitute, or but things take time, and certainly if you've got a good redundancy payout, then you might be able to survive for quite a while. If your redundancy settlement is quite small, then you might have more of an urgency, but God's not going to let you go hungry. I really do believe that. If you have a faith in Jesus, it really will enrich and encourage you during this time. And it says in, I think it's 1 Timothy, that God provides for us richly. And do you want to find
that up? 1 Timothy
6:17, I think it is.
Command those who are rich in the things of this life not to be proud, but to place their hope not in such an uncertain thing as riches. So we mustn't trust in what we have, but in God, who generously gives us everything for our enjoyment. So it's not just for the necessity things. He gives us what we need for our own enjoyment, because He knows He's given us life in abundance. And we should trust in Him for those things.
Point 4: recognise that looking for another job is a full-time job. It really does take a lot of your time, and be prepared for that. It may be that even if you're not looking for another job, you're looking to perhaps start a business or whatever you're planning to do, having been made redundant. Invariably, it will take a lot longer than you think it's going to take to organise. And if you're looking for a job, it may be that you have to apply for quite a lot of jobs before you get the one that you want, or the one that actually offers you something. So, it can be weeks or months. So be prepared for that. Point 5. Keep a routine going. I think that's really important, because it's so easy when you've start in redundancy or start having a period of not working to perhaps think, oh well, I'll put that looking for a job or that thing off to another day, and start to have more lay-ins. Now, I think having a routine of, if you work Monday to Friday, of carrying on getting up at a regular time each day and starting to look for work, starting to search online, filling in those application forms, that becomes your new job, looking for a job. And so that's really good. And also, if you're setting up a business, set yourself a number of objectives each day to make you closer to where you need to be in order to make that a success, rather than just putting it off and just saying, oh, okay, well, I'll have a break for a week and then have another break for another week, and before you know it, the weeks and months have rolled by and you've not really achieved anything. Point 6, don't get discouraged. It's very easy to get despondent or feel rejected every time an application fails or you don't hear anything from someone who's a potential employer. It's not necessarily that they're being mean to you, it's just that they've been inundated with other applications. Point 7, don't let this period of redundancy define you. You're not an unemployed person, you're just a person that isn't in work. I know that sounds a bit crazy, but that is not your label. You're not permanently unemployable necessarily. You're just seeking work. You're just the same person inside. You've just got to find your new role. Point 8, see it as an opportunity. It's an opportunity to make a new start and to reevaluate what perhaps God wants for you. Maybe that he didn't really want you in the job that you were in anyway, and it's a new opportunity for a fresh start. In this season where I think a lot of people, like there's a mass redundancy, I think maybe God's trying to do something and trying to get us repositioned. So think differently. It might be that he wants you to take on a completely different role or a completely different job with a completely different outlook on life. So it might need some serious thinking about, as a couple, what do we want from the rest of our lives? How do we see things? Do we need to rejig things? Does one of us have to take more of an earning role and the other one less so? And so forth.
See this as an opportunity, not a tragic set of events, but something that you could really get your teeth into, something you've wanted to do for years maybe. Grasp it with both hands. And isn't it wonderful that as a married couple we can do this together, walk it out together? You're not on your own, are you, when you're married?
Point 9, you're not alone in this period of redundancy. You're going to have the support of God and your husband or your wife during the period of redundancy.
We also have to remember that we've got friends. God's given us many friends, and again in Hebrews it says there's a great crowd of witnesses that are watching what we're doing, and yes, they're those that have gone ahead and passed away, but they're cheering us on, but we have our living friends around us who also are cheering us on and caring for us, and we shouldn't be embarrassed or ashamed to let people know of our circumstances, because they might be the very person that can lead you to your next job. And I think that also helped you as well. Didn't you have an ex-work colleague or a friend who actually pointed you to your next job?
That's right. Yeah, I mean, certainly one of the best sources of finding work is not through looking at adverts or trawling the internet. One of the best sources of finding other work is your contact list of friends, acquaintances, people that you've known in the past that might be able to point you in the direction of some work, even if it's only temporary, to get you out of a tricky situation. And I would say that most of the jobs that I've acquired over the years haven't been through agencies necessarily, or through just looking for an advert. I've actually managed to create an opportunity by speaking to people that I had some tenuous contact with through a friend or an acquaintance. And
I think also if you're willing to share your situation and make yourself vulnerable, as Christians we should be praying for one another, and if you don't tell anybody, how can they pray for you? And that is really comforting to know that people are praying for you, and prayer is very powerful, as we all know. As a wife, we are called to be our husband's helpers, and so this is a very great opportunity when your husband's in a situation where he's feeling completely low, and anxious and worried, we're there to support him and encourage him. And but if it's the other way around, of course, if it's the wife that's lost her job, then a husband equally has to respect his wife's views, has to love her, and he can love her by encouraging her and cherishing her in exactly the same way. So it works both ways, doesn't it? And that is our role as the other partner in a marriage, is to support the other person. And yeah, it's we should see it as our responsibility. We don't just leave them to try and find the job. We should try and help them to find the job that they need. We should seek the Lord in prayer. Particularly if our husband or wife isn't a believer, then that will be our job, is to get down on our knees and pray. But it's wonderful if a husband and wife can pray together. That's very, very supportive.
Yeah, I think the key to all this is, irrespective of whether it's one income that's been lost, or the total income to the house that's been lost, or both incomes have been lost because you've both been made redundant at the same time.
Yeah.
Irrespective of that, unity in your
absolutely.
marriage is really key.
Yeah.
And having that time to connect with each other still, having that, making time to have some fun, even on a limited budget, is really important. Otherwise you're just both going to be at each other's throats, and well, maybe not, but
so even if you can't pray together, or you've not prayed together before, or one of you is a Christian and the other one isn't, still have time, or make time to sit down and talk, communicate about your worries and your fears and your dreams and desires of what you hope will happen in the future. Just having that connection together is just so important, isn't it?
Point 10. Don't compromise your values. I don't believe God would want you to do that, and so you shouldn't either.